Quite easy, you just need to read the slide if you cannot hear me. So first, welcome to skip the lunch for listening about me speaking about Docker and Ansible and everything. My name is Michael, and I will start to ask, please do not take picture of me. Do not want to do that. And if I do not tell two people, they do that. Who I am beside a French-speaking old sysadmin guy who do not want to take picture. I'm system administrator at Red Hat, which is a company that you may have heard of for the open source and standard team, which is a team that you likely not have heard of, which is helping upstream strategic project for Red Hat to be successful. So most of the time that means doing configuration management, community management, or design or system administration. When you get a system administrated by a developer, you can imagine how bad it is. Well, it's exactly that, but worse. And so my life so far, I've been since 3 years doing that, managing gluster.org, manageIQ.org, deploying cloud and this kind of stuff. We want to get infrastructure maintained by the community, which means most of the time being maintained by the same developers that most of the time did a suboptimal mess when given root access. And I did that first by being a Puppet guy. I like Puppet very much, except that for people who already have used Puppet, it's harder to install and harder for developer to group. So I started to look at Ansible because it was simple. Each time I was giving a talk everywhere, lots of people knew about it and said, yeah, they were happy, but it's slow and everything, so we know. Just to make sure everybody did heard about Ansible can raise their hand, just to check. Okay, so there was still half of the people who didn't, so you're going to have 5 slides on that. I can speak up.
Somebody's coming. Organizers are coming.
Okay, is it better?
He's coming for the microphone, so just bear with me.
Okay, so is it better? So let's go back to Ansible. So Ansible is an orchestration tool for people who are not sysadmin, because I know there is student and everything that's running some task on your cluster of server, even if it's sometimes a cluster of one single server, sometimes it's much bigger. And something like deploying a new application, shutting it down, shutting the monitoring because you do not want to get paged at the same time and everything. People started to use that for orchestration, then moved to deployment. When compared to Puppet, one of the big advantages is it's agentless, which mostly means that you do not depend on one specific version of the agent. It's just used by default SSH, but we will see later that it can use something else, such as Docker and container. It's really simple to explain what it does. That's why it's not a good topic for presentation, because in 5 minutes you have already explained everything. So that's just the concept of a remote execution of module. For example, if you want to get fired, it's quite easy. You just use that, which will shut down all your server, which, as I said, is bad for production, but it's nice to test what happens in case of catastrophe. Since just shutting down the server is not enough, I mean, there is also the concept of a playbook, which is executing a set of steps based on a YAML file, because XML was too old, so we decided to use a YAML. So it's like a script, but it's not a script. I say that because there is a lot of people who come who say, yeah, I would like to do that, and that. Basically what they want is a bash script or a Python script, but it's not a script. It's supposed to be different. If you want to get Python, well, it turns out that there is Python. If you want to do Perl, you can do Perl. If you want to do Ruby, you can also do Perl. It's almost the same. And it's one of the new hotness. I was last week at a conference in the Czech Republic, and I have a trick. When I want to go speak about something, I just try to add with Docker, with Ansible for anything. Like this afternoon, it will be SDN with Ansible. Today, it's a container with Ansible. I did try community with Ansible. This one got refused, but most of the time it worked. And there was like something 10 talk. It was a Red Hat sponsored conference, so that's why a lot of people are speaking about Ansible. And yeah, it's quite popular among developers because it's simple. Each time I try to do training, they ask me directly the complicated question instead of the simple stuff that I did prepare, because I'm sysadmin, I'm lazy. If I can just read the documentation for people in exchange of food, I will do it. It turns out that's not what they want. They want my brain. not like zombie, like developer, even if the difference is not that obvious at first. And speaking about stuff popular among developers, so there is Docker, same. Everybody did heard Docker, someone coming from Mars where there is no internet since 3 years. No? Can people who heard about Docker raise their hand? Okay, so that's almost as popular as Ansible. But since people didn't raise their hand, well, again, 5 slides, it's not at all filler for the conference, I promise. So what is Docker? Docker is also the new hotness, which is revolution. The revolution last year was cloud, now it's container. And it's a container engine which manage, build, and run container. And most of the time when we say container to old sysadmins, they will say, yeah, the Solaris stuff, or Elixir, or Virtuoso, or whatever. And this time it's completely different. It's not like we are taking the same stuff and repackaging for marketing reasons. I mean, that's not what happened in the industry at all. And the idea here is mostly to get prepackaged single process execution environment, mostly for microservices. People that have been there since a long time think that microservices is old stuff. That's what we got with enterprise Java Bean and SOA and all kind of trendy technology from the last 10 years. It also manages the network, the disk, and everything. And so since I'm a sysadmin, and I think that being a sysadmin means more than just playing Quake and complaining about developer.
He's here to fix the audio.
Okay, so if suddenly I start to be much louder, it's because someone is fixing the audio. It's not because I want to really, it's not because I'm really motivated by Docker. So I tried to use Docker first to solve my problem. My first problem was to run prosody for some Fedora server with an old version of prosody because I like to live dangerously. I use Fedora on my server. And it turned out that, well, it do not work that well. There is some... There is... So, yeah?
Keep talking.
Okay. So if I sound like a robot, it's not because someone is trying to replace me. And it's not the Docker people trying to shut me down either. So we first had some issue. Well, no, I first had an issue. I will stop talking to me using Railway with UID and permission because Docker is supposed to be fully isolated. Like you have your Docker environment and it's not supposed to communicate except using the web, REST API, and everything like this. So yeah, first try, well, problem with UID and permission. Okay, not working. Second attempt, one of my work is building static website, and we are using a wonderful Ruby middleware, which is wonderful because thanks to it, I'm never out of work. I mean, I will likely be forced to maintain it until the end of my life, which is great because lots of people are looking for work, and I have more than enough. And of course, because this is Ruby, this is using all kind of gem, and we did hit some issue about catching with Docker, so it quickly broke too often for that, and nope, not solving any issue. So then I said, okay, it's not working for the stuff that you are trying to use, but what about the use case of Docker, which is using your own custom code? And it turned out that, well, 10 years ago, I was trying to learn Django. So I took the tutorial, I created my own blog engine because it's tutorial for Django. And yeah, I decided to modernize it, which is mostly moving to Django 1 to 1.2, 1.1, 1.3 and everything. And it's quite great. I did read all the release notes and half of the code got to be thrown away. That's so nice with development. And it was the same. It was taking lots of time despite catching because the Dockerfile was inside the source code, so everything had to restart from scratch. The application was 3 different Docker image, so I was making a modification, waiting 10 minutes, playing Quake, seeing it break, making a modification and everything. Again, developer best practice. So I said, yeah, maybe I'm not doing it right. And I started to look at the Dockerfile best practice. And the first one is do not use root, which is something that it's quite nice because nobody does that. Everybody starts everything in root. And when you are root inside the container, it's the same outside. I mean, everybody has seen Matrix. When Neo is root inside the Matrix, you manage to do stuff outside, which is a plot hole in the movie, but which is a reality in the case of Docker. There is also the whole part about cleaning your system after installing package, which make Dockerfiles so readable, because suddenly you have lines that require to get two screens just to be displayed. There is the whole part about layer squashing, and all of this is something that should be done by default. And it turns out that you cannot do because the format is frozen. But as far as I know, and if there is someone from Docker that can tell to me I'm wrong, I would be happy to change that slide. It will be too late because the presentation is recorded, but it's not formally specified. So that means that, well, you cannot do any change, but you cannot make another implementation. It's also not extensible. I mean, lots of people here are likely maybe packager or know how RPM work. In RPM, you have RPM macro, which is, well, nice when it works, quite horrible when it don't. You have Debian command, you have emerge function and everything. Each time you want to do a package, and the Docker image is basically a package because you want to distribute binary to be executed, which is the whole reason of having a package. Well, you do not have that extensibility. The same, you do not have anything which is machine readable directly. I mean, you can always do a parser, but a parser with something which is not specified and using something not as good as XML. And I mean, if I say that I would prefer XML, then the format, it's quite bad for the format. And that means to no obvious way to enforce the policy. For example, if you look at other packaging system where you have package.json, you can trivially run it, look at the content, and then do whatever you want. And so, yeah, that most of the time require manual change to enforce best practice. For example, you want to install Apache. Well, you need to install it, and then you need to clean everything because you do not want to get crap, especially since you are likely using the cloud and paying by the gigabyte of image that you are using. And, yeah. There is no script automation like you have with RPM. I don't know if people did RPM. I did a lot since 10 years, but there is a lot of stuff that are done in an automated way that are not done. There is a whole caching side effect that I already complained, and I'm pretty sure everybody that used Docker did see that. It's like a makefile, but recursive. Yeah, the add operation is recursive, so if you have the Dockerfile, you have no catch. And so I started to look at that, and I said, okay, what can I do to avoid that? Because you cannot fix it. I mean, I cannot fix it because I'm not a Go developer. But even if I was a Go developer, I could not because I decided to freeze it, which is also a good idea. So what can I do? And Ansible is really, really flexible. There is people using it inside Red Hat for QA testing. They find a bug, they get a playbook, they give it to the developer run it, fix it, and then suddenly it becomes a test. There is people using that for deploying their own GNOME environment. There is people, I was using that on NetApp. I was using that for searching home directory of user and everything. So, and the reason for that is there is a lot of plugin for Ansible. You can add your own module and everything. And there is one specific plugin that people seem to overlook. It's connection plugin. By default, Ansible uses just SSH, either Paramiko or the command line SSH. There is something for chroot, so you can, instead of connecting to a remote system, you just connect to your own chroot if you want to configure. And I did create something to run Ansible on top of Func. If people do not remember Func, it's like mcollective or SaltStack, but older. I also did wrote something to run Ansible on top of SaltStack because it did look like a fun idea. It took me 1 year to fix, and it's still not working properly, but still fun. Or for GustFS, you give a virtual machine image, you start it, you modify with Ansible, you shut down. It's like Packer, but using my code. And so I started to say, yeah, maybe I can do something with Docker. So I started first by using NSExec. Docker works with a system of namespace, and you can use NSExec. Jérôme Petazzoni, working at Docker, wrote a blog post and said, oh, that looks like a smart idea. And it turned out that no, it was not a smart idea because the PR got refused. 1 year after, Docker managed to get the Docker exec command. Someone decided to create a plugin for connecting to a Docker image directly. It got merged. And then someone, which is not me, because I'm not an Ansible container developer, just an Ansible developer, decided to create Ansible container like less than 1 year ago. And because the question is, why do we want to do that if you can do everything directly with Ansible? And why do you want to do that if you already have a YAML file? No, not YAML file, Dockerfiles. So why use Ansible container? So first, well, it's YAML. So it's kind of machine readable, which means that you can enforce static checking. Another big issue with Dockerfile is that you cannot reuse anything easily. There is no support for a library or something like this. I do not know if there is something plain for that, or if there is a community best practice. I still maintain old stuff using old methods. I'm not using this fancy Docker stuff yet in production, waiting for people to deploy everything for that. But with Ansible container, you can use the role. So role in Ansible is a way to basically just reuse the code. You say, this server should be a SQL server, like Postgres, MySQL, SQLite if you want. I mean, I will not judge your choice. You just put everything, and then you assign the role to a server, and that's it. You apply, it deploy. If you done your job well, everything works. If you didn't, it do not work. You go back to fix, and that's it. So that permits to reuse code, that permits to do composition. You want to deploy something like, I don't know, PHPBB. PHPBB requires to get a web server, requires to get PHP, requires to get a SQL database. Then you can compose. And it's better because you can enforce best practice on module side. I should have had something like to do, because right now, if you are using anything to install package, you still need to clean. You can more easily deploy with a different base image. And you got one single tool to learn, especially if you got a legacy application. I mean, most people, except in startup who start from scratch, needs to maintain the old stuff, like, you know, the old Oracle database that permit everybody to be paid, because it turns out that's to be quite important to get money for your work, and this has to work. You have the container infrastructure that cannot be maintained in container for, well, obvious reason, and you have the whole container deployment. So I said, yeah, Ansible container is great, but you promise in the abstract to show how it works and everything. So yeah, I did promise that. So if you want to use it, you can right now download from GitHub, which is best practice, curl pipe something, or you can use pip. If someone wants to make a package, it will be very, very nice. I'm too lazy to do one, but I'm pretty sure that people have more free time than me. It starts with a workflow inspired by Django and other. So I cannot say it's inspired by Django, but that's one of the projects I know, in the sense that you start by doing Ansible container init in your source code. It will create a skeleton in a directory called Ansible, which contains some file, more than 2, but I wanted that to be readable for people in the back. If they cannot hear me, at least they can read that. And the list exact of file is somewhere in the documentation. I don't plan to read the complete documentation, but at least to explain. So first, well, if you want to build a container, well, you got a YAML file, which is called main.yaml, which is a playbook. That's exactly the kind of playbook that you can use without Ansible containers that maybe you already like, maybe you already dislike, but if you dislike, I think that you are not gonna use Ansible containers, so let's pretend that everybody loves Ansible. It can use role, and it's executed inside a Docker container. So it's like managing your external services, except with container. So it's better, by definition. The inventory comes from container.yaml, which is a YAML file similar, if I'm not wrong, to Docker Compose, similar to the point that you are supposed to be able to take a Docker Compose file and directly use it for container.yaml. It's explicitly written somewhere in a bug report that they want to keep compatibility. You can use, there is a non-environment variable if you want to get a role that can be used inside and outside of the container, because again, most people do not migrate right away. And once you have your Docker image, you say, yeah, that's nice. It's taking space on my disk. What can I do with that? Well, it turns out that you can also run and deploy them. So everything goes back to container.yaml. As I said, it's compatible to Docker Compose, in the sense that you can take Docker Compose file for Ansible container, but there is more addition. For example, there is a system of a Jinja variable. Jinja is a templating language used by Ansible and used by Python community and by the Django community, if I'm not wrong. So the file contains a list of containers. The word of play was not prepared. You can list the base image, the port, the volume. And something which is quite interesting is that you can decide to have an override for the configuration for specific stuff, like for development stuff. You can say, okay, it's running on the developer laptop. I do not want to connect to the production database, so I will change the environment variable. So if someone do something like, oh, I want to see if I can remove everything, and it turned out that, well, this was a production database, yeah, no. It will just crash something locally. You can do that to do some smart stuff with using the source code directly on the disk, so it's faster for a developer to test and break, which is something that I was not able to do in the past. You can get option per deployment, because once you have everything you want to deploy on a cluster. So it turned out, since that's Red Hat sponsored, you have the choice between country and work. So you can use OpenShift, which is a tool on top of Kubernetes, or directly Kubernetes. If you want more, it's on the roadmap, which means that there is a GitHub bug open for that, and it's waiting for someone to push the code since 4 months. And you can ship container, which basically do not mean to put them in a boat somewhere in Amsterdam and move them around the planet. It's just to push on a remote registry. And it's even so great that you can just generate a deployment playbook, which then became a Ansible playbook, ship it to OpenShift. We don't know exactly what it does, but after, there is profit. And so the tool is quite new. If it was older, I would have said more. And the developer really want to get all kind of feedback, because they are developers. They do not know if that's what the community want. So I'm trying to help them to get some awareness about the tool. I'm pretty sure that they will be tomorrow. They will be there somewhere. I do not know what they look like. I mean, everybody looks the same, but if you go to config management camp, there is an Ansible track, and you can discuss with them, say, yeah, that's a good idea, but what about that? Or that's a bad idea, and I do not want to speak you anymore and just disappear. You can do what you want. And if you have any question, please do so, or you can just do like me and run to get something to eat, because it's the time to eat. Yeah, it was fast. So.
Do you have a demo? Or?
No. I do not believe in the power of live demo because it never works. But I can make a non-working demo without problem. Maybe it will work by error.
All right.
Yeah, so if people have questions.
Yeah.
Is there a mic or something, or I need to repeat?
You have to shout out and then you have to repeat the question.
Okay, so.
I have similar. I run Ansible inside the Dockerfile, but each time when I run Ansible, I make very little small change in Ansible playbook, and I create a big snapshot which my customers should random load when they update the container. So how it is solved in your solutions? Because I made only little change for 2 bytes, but my customers should random load 700 megabytes.
Okay, so the question.
I run Ansible like just in Dockerfile. You know. Yeah.
Okay, so the question is running Ansible inside Dockerfile result into big image, and people need to re-download it, and does the solution fix that? I think the answer is no. I know that there is something related to layers crashing, which means that you will still get a big image. And I'm not sure that Ansible is the right place for that, because if you change 2 bytes, it should be the synchronization used by Docker or the registry to be smart. I mean, we have rsync since 20 years, more. Maybe they could implement that because it will fix the issue for everybody. Maybe there is technical reason to not implement that. I mean, I do not know the internal of Docker that well. So, does that answer the question? Does that answer the question? No? Oh. So the answer is no, we do not have anything to fix the problem. Yep. Can you speak louder?
Speak up, please.
So there is a bug open for supporting Rocket. Is that the question? I cannot really hear, so I will just move.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah. So the question is there plan to use a Rocket? I know there is a bug open. I do not know how they want to use it. I suspect since Rocket is compatible with Docker and you can use Docker image and everything, whatever you use at the backend do not matter that much, and it should be quite easy to do. There is a bug open, someone requesting feedback and working on it. It's quite easy. There is like 5 pull requests and 40 issues, so it's quite easy to find that. If you are a Python developer, you can take a look and test and say it's working, it's not working. I think there is some interest. It's just that there is 2 people right now on the project and they are traveling around to speak about the project.
Did you check the battery?
So if people who didn't left want to contact me, there is my email and that's it.